Arguably the greatest Australian rules footballer to come from Queensland, Dunstall was one of the first of a generation of big-bodied let-up full forwards who could also out-wrestle opponents for position in a marking contest and was also an agile team-oriented player. He made his name as a full forward during an era in which power forwards including Tony Lockett, Gary Ablett Sr., Warwick Capper, Alan Jakovich, Simon Beasley, Severio Rocca, John Longmire, Tony Modra and Peter Sumich dominated the league goal scoring. He is one of only 6 players to have kicked over 1,000 career goals in the VFL, AFL, and only Lockett and Collingwood's Gordon Coventry have kicked more career goals, but tragically injuries, physical fitness dragged him down in the late parts of his career, but still that won't ruin his legacy anyway. This is the story of Jason Dunstall.
Dunstall was born and raised in Brisbane as one of 3 sons. His brothers are Harry and Nicholas. He attended the Anglican Church Grammar School from 1977 to 1981. At school he played soccer as a goalkeeper and also rugby union. His junior Australian rules football was spent playing with the Coorparoo Football Club in the then Queensland Australian Football League (QAFL). In 1984, as a 20-year-old, Dunstall made his senior debut and enjoyed a stellar season, claiming the QAFL Leading Goalkicker award with 73 goals in the home and away season and kicking 7 goals in Coorparoo's grand final win. Dunstall was recruited to VFL club Hawthorn in 1985, touted as a new tall forward option, his recruitment largely overshadowed by that of promising West Australian recruit Steve Malaxos. Whilst not immediately impressed by Dunstall's appearance, Alan Jeans became somewhat of a father figure over the course of the 1980s as his coach. Dunstall made his 1985 VFL debut against Melbourne at Princes Park. He had an immediate impact, kicking an impressive 3 goals and 3 behinds in his team's demolition of the Demons, however was third in the team's goal-kicking behind Dermot Brereton and John Kennedy. He was dropped from the side 3 games later after a loss to Richmond, however regained some form towards the end of the season, finishing with 35 goals. In his breakout game against Richmond, he would kick 8 goals, and the media heralded the 20-year-old Queenslander as a future star. In 1987 expansion club the Brisbane Bears in search of a marquee Queenslander made a $2 million, 10-year offer to Dunstall, however despite the lucrative deal and the opportunity to return to his home stage, he turned it down choosing to stay with the Hawks. 1988 was a special year for Dunstall. In round 19 against Fitzroy he brought up his first century of goals in a season. He had kicked 98 goals going into the match, and Hawthorn supporters expected the required 2 goals to come sooner rather than later. However, Dunstall would miss his first 2 shots and drop a few marks before putting through his first goal at the 17-minute mark. The moment of truth came at the 30-minute mark of the first quarter when teammate Dermot Brereton kicked the ball high into the air. It took a vicious bounce over Fitzroy defender Brett Stevens' head and landed in Dunstall's arms. The goal was kicked and the fans came running onto the ground to congratulate only the second Hawthorn player after Peter Hudson to kick 100 goals in a season. Dunstall kicked a further 6 goals for the game to finish with 8 goals. He would finish the home and away season with 124 goals, winning his first Coleman medal. He also won his first club best and fairest award. In the 1988 grand final massacre against Melbourne, he kicked 7 goals. Dunstall established his reputation as one of the best full forwards in Australia during the 1989 VFL season. He won his second straight Coleman medal with 128 goals during the home and away season and finished 3rd in the Brownlow medal vote count. He kicked 10 or more goals in a match twice. In round 16, he kicked 11 goals against Collingwood, and 11 goals against St Kilda in round 22. Dunstall added 10 more goals during the final series, 4 of those in the epic 1989 Premiership victory, to take his overall tally to 138 goals for the season. He also won the Club Best and Fairest award for the 2nd straight year. Representing Victoria in the State of Origin series, Dunstall won the Simpson Medal for Best on Ground in the match against Western Australia played in Perth. 1990 began promisingly enough for Dunstall. In round 1, in the grand final rematch against Geelong at Waverley Park, he kicked a then career-best 12 goals after being held goalless in the first quarter. Hawthorn went on to thrash the Cats by 115 points. In round 4 against Brisbane Bears at Princes Park in wet conditions, Dunstall kicked 8 goals, bringing up his 500th career goal in the process, as the Hawks won by 82 points. But in round 9 against Melbourne, Dunstall was injured in the first quarter. He fell heavily on an opponent's boot and sustained a serious injury at the front of his head. He was taken from the ground and admitted to the Alfred Hospital. At that stage of the season Dunstall had kicked 41 goals. The injury would cause him to miss the next 4 matches. After his return in round 14, he kicked a further 42 goals, including 11 goals against Collingwood in round 20. On the Footy Show after the 1990 AFL Grand Final, Lee Matthews said that he was glad Hawthorn got knocked out of the finals, because Dunstall always seemed to kick a huge number of goals against the recently crowned premiers. Dunstall kicked 82 goals in 1991, including 6 in the Grand Final as Hawthorn claimed their 9th premiership. They were unable to defend the premiership in 1992 after they lost to West Coast in a closely contested elimination final. But Dunstall enjoyed arguably his most successful season on an individual level. He won his third Coleman medal after kicking 139 goals during the home and away season. 6 more in the elimination final took his season tally to 145 and finished second in the Brownlow medal vote count. In round 7, Dunstall kicked what would be his career best of 17 goals against Richmond, just 1 goal short of the record held by Fred Fanning of Melbourne. Dunstall reached his century of goals against Geelong in round 16 at Cardinia Park with his 5th goal of the match just before half-time. He ended the match with 9 goals and beat 3 opponents as Hawthorn won by 19 points. Dunstall's outstanding season was recognised with his 3rd Club Best and Fairest award, as well as his first selection in the All-Australian team at full forward. In the elimination final in 1996 against Sydney, Dunstall tumbled over Andrew Dunkley and was left writhing on the ground clutching a badly injured knee which required a knee reconstruction. Surprisingly, Dunstall's knee healed well enough for him to play half a reserves match just before the start of the 1997 AFL season, and was picked to play against St Kilda in the opening round. Dunstall recovered in time for the start of the 1998 AFL season. He had kicked 52 goals for the season before tragedy again struck in round 14 against Carlton, the same team against which Dunstall had injured his knee the previous season. Lining up on illustrious opponent Stephen Silvergney, Dunstall twisted and fell on his right shoulder early in the second quarter. Silvergney accidentally landed on top of Dunstall at the same time, forcing Dunstall's shoulder into the ground and breaking his collarbone. Dunstall's shoulder was put in a special brace for several weeks, and club physiotherapist Barry Gavin was optimistic of his chances of returning before the end of the season, a view not shared by doctors at several other clubs. Dunstall did return for the final game of the year, but only after having announced his retirement, first to the Hawthorn coaching and management staff, then to the general public on the 7 Network football show Live and Kicking. Before Dunstall's final game, against Fremantle at Waverley Park, a number of his former teammates and associates came to congratulate him, including coach Alan Jeans. Dunstall was clearly moved by the occasion, and combined with a severe lack of match fitness, struggled to have much impact on the game. He did, however, score the first goal of the game and the first goal of the last term. Nevertheless, the 40,000 or so Hawthorn fans that came to pay tribute to their champion cheered every touch that Dunstall got of the ball. The Hawks kicked 11 goals in the last quarter to win by 89 points, and amid emotional scenes Dunstall was cheered off the ground by his teammates, bringing to a close the most successful chapter in Hawthorn's on-field history. After finishing as a player, Dunstall has become a prominent football media personality, commentating matches for various radio stations in Melbourne and appearing regularly on Fox Footy as host of the show Bounce. He became close friends with Danny Frawley during the 12 years they spent together on the program until his death in 2019.
A legendary figure in the world of Australian rules football, and his playing career is synonymous with greatness. He faced numerous challenges but remained committed to the game until the very end. His determination, persistence, and courage are a source of inspiration to players, coaches, and fans alike. His contributions to the game have been recognised and celebrated, and his legacy as one of the greatest full forwards of all time will forever be celebrated.